The thing is that when we experience emotions, we human beings, we are taught normally to push them away, right? And kind of push them down with something else. Now, some people choose alcohol or drugs or some other form of divertisement. Some people choose TV or whatever it is. And some people choose to eat, right? To overcome either emotions, stress. Now, emotions does not always mean it needs to be negative emotions. Often it is, but not only.
Andrea Caprio is an expert in emotional eating and a master transformational nutrition coach, and the founder and CEO of Wellness Methods. She developed her food freedom formula to help busy women struggling with cravings and emotional eating lose weight holistically without dramatic changes to their diets or workouts. Andrea's mission is to help others break free from self-sabotage, heal their relationship with food, and figure out how they can live life on their own terms. Welcome to the show, Andrea.
Heike, thanks so much for having me here. And thank you for the listeners to being here on the show. I was so excited. We've been connecting for some while and trying to make that happen. Thank you. And thanks for the lovely introduction.
You are most welcome. And since I was on your summit, the food freedom formula, the 3 Fs, which we conducted while I was in Hawaii, I was like, what a perfect setup to have you here for my listeners, for the empty nester mom over 50, who I'm sure are dealing with what we're talking about, and that is emotional eating and how to deal with emotional healing on a holistic way instead of gimmicks and tricks and all kinds of other things. Now, what are you most passionate about, Andrea?
I think I'm most passionate about helping others to realize that one, they deserve to be healthy and happy, right? And that they are able to, and also to make them realize that it's not them who are broken, but it's the diet industry, right? The modern healthcare and diet industry that is all around making us women or us people, right, believe that we are the broken link here, and that we are not able, we are not worthy, we are not lovable, or whatever it is, right? And it is not, because I really believe, and I'm so passionate about personalized nutrition, what I call it, is basically finding out what works for you, right? Heike, you are different than I am. Our listeners are all different from each other. And we really need a more personalized approach. And helping women, I work mostly with women, really find that out is something I'm so passionate about. And it comes also through my own health history, becoming a nutrition coach, when I realized how the right nutrition for me, and when I say nutrition, I don't mean just food, I mean always a holistic approach in there, how that right approach for me worked and improved my own health concerns.
When did that all start happening, that you had issues with your own health and you actually recognized that?
Great question. So it was actually about probably 7 years ago or so, 8 years, somewhere around there. I've been living like you in many different places, right? And at the time I had moved from South Africa. We lived there for 16 years to Miami in Florida. And I kind of was, at the time, I was very stressed. I was worried. I was not eating that healthy, and have realized also that I had not been eating that healthy for many years. I've been lying to myself, right? Thinking that, yeah, a few vegetables mean healthy. And I found, actually, when I was in Miami, all things, happened together. And I found really that I was eating too much sugar. I had a lot of migraines. I had like weekly migraines, and really bad ones that knocked me off completely. I had really bad digestive issues as well, like bloating. I was very, very low in energy. I think it was almost like a fatigue syndrome or something like that at the time. And I had, which I only discovered actually much later, I had over many years before always had fibroids. And fibroids are hormone related, which obviously I didn't know at the time so much. I learned that much later, only now. I mean, since I work as a nutrition coach. But those fibroids were there and they were growing. And then I saw doctors and they said, oh, you need a hysterectomy. And I said, no, I don't want a hysterectomy. Ooh. And that was my own decision. Just a little bit a disclaimer. I'm not telling anybody not to do a hysterectomy should their doctor tell that. But for myself, I always said, like, unless it's a danger to my life or, cancer or something like that, I don't want a hysterectomy. And so anyway, I had the fibroids removed. I didn't have a hysterectomy. They would regrow. And 2 years later, I had again issues. I had them removed, etc. Again, the doctor told me do a hysterectomy, and I had that done 3 times over several years. So at that time, about 7 years ago, this had always already been in the past. I realized all these things were related to my nutrition, because the factor when I realized that was that I came across a really healthy detox at the time. It was really a good nourishing your body with healthy foods, with vegetables, with healthy proteins, with smoothies, and also do a lot of self-care and holistic lifestyle. And I implemented that over a few weeks. And guess what? Everything improved in my life, literally everything, right? I had energy, I had no more migraines, and I had no bloating. I lost weight. By the way, I also had a bit too much weight at the time, and so on. I said, wow, what is happening? And I realized it was obviously due to the life change I was going through. And then as things are, I saw one ad on Facebook that came up, right? I must have researched something. And I saw, oh, nutrition school. And I said, and at the time I was in a different business. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I want to help other people to achieve the same as I have achieved. And guess what? Today, I never had any more issues with my fibroids and migraines. Instead of having weekly migraines, I have them maybe 3-4 times a year. And I have absolutely no issues with energy or anything else, bloating and so on. And I have helped over hundreds of clients of mine achieve similar things.
It is amazing when you realize how it was not a dramatic change for you, but really changing your diet, which changed everything to a much healthier lifestyle. And my husband has or had severe migraine headaches when we met, and like you quite often, but but I guess because he was dating me and married me, he changed his lifestyle of eating and drinking and all this, as well as incorporating exercise with what he did. And he too has rarely a migraine. It comes every now and again, but it's definitely not related, like you pointed out, because of the nutrition part.
There are so many factors that can contribute to migraines, right? Like many other health issues, by the way. And I really believe in a holistic approach there. I mean, migraines can be triggered by the foods you eat, and it can be that you're eating absolutely healthy. And there might be a healthy food that triggers your migraine. If you have an intolerance to, for example, a nightshade, or maybe, some additives are in relatively healthy foods, even, wine. I like my wine, and I believe, wine is, if obviously not too much drunk, is absolutely okay for many people. But there is, for example, there's sulfites in wine, and that can trigger, for example, migraine headaches that I found out with myself. So I have to be always careful with that. It can be stress, of course, is a huge trigger for migraines, right? And often I feel it's always like a combination of several things happening, right? Nutrition and maybe some lifestyle, missing sleep. Whatever.
Yeah, that's definitely a combination of those things. So as we're exploring the connection between emotions and eating, what is the connection between emotions and eating, Andrea?
The thing is that when we experience emotions, we human beings, we are taught normally to push them away, right? And kind of push them down with something else. Now, some people choose alcohol or drugs or some other form of divertisement. Some people choose TV or whatever it is, and some people choose to eat, right, to overcome either emotions, stress. Now, emotions does not always mean it needs to be negative emotions. Often it is, but not only, because on the other hand, we also have positive emotions where we eat. Look how we celebrate when there's a wedding or a birth or whatever. It's always combined, and we have lived our whole lives, right? Always understanding that whenever something happens emotionally, we eat, right? And very often, of course, it comes from our childhood, and it's the subconscious, because we have seen our parents eat when they were emotionally up or down or whatever. So we kind of take this over. And obviously, it's a little bit deeper than that. And I'm sure we're going to explore that a bit. But that's why so many people put emotions with eating together, because also eating is available, right? I mean, we eat, we need to eat, right? Whereas alcohol and drugs, just as a sample, we don't need, right? Somebody might be addicted to, but we do not need that to live, right? So we can take it away, but we cannot just take food away if somebody has emotional eating or struggles with any eating disorder or so.
Yeah, you made a good point. I never thought of that. We also eat when we're happy. That's true. It's like weddings, birthdays, like you said. I've never thought of it as eating emotionally in that sense. That's a great point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, why is it? And as I talked with you earlier, as I interviewed, I asked some of my current clients and people in my Facebook group of what they would like to know from you as the emotional eating expert here today. So we have a hodgepodge of really interesting questions for you today. Okay. So one of them was, why do we deal with our emotions by eating instead of talking about them?
Again, I think coming from how we've seen people dealing in our environment, our parents deal with emotions, it's easier just to shovel them away and rather eat instead, right? Talking is not comfortable, right? I mean, people don't like talking. Because basically they have to confront these emotions, right? They need to think about them, feel them, accept them, defend them, maybe if they talk about it, right? Or admit maybe that they are weak. So it's not necessarily a weakness, by the way, but they might think that at that moment, whatever. So people don't like talking, I think, about their failures, right? If that is that, there's some stress or emotional eating. So it's much easier to put it away. And we've been taught, I mean, if you look, how often have we been told, don't cry, stop crying as a child, maybe. Boys don't cry, right? Oh, girl, you're a cry, we say Heulsuse in German, right? A crying
yeah.
Susanna, that just came up here. It's funny. But, so we kind of, we are labeled as, crying and dealing and speaking about our emotions is not good. And often then, when we cry, actually, we get a sweetie when we were a child. Look how often you go to the dentist and the dentist gives you a sweetie after. How is that, right? After you went to the dentist, exactly. Or the doctor, right, gives you a little sweetie or whatever it is. So we kind of have been growing up and seeing that it's okay when we feel anything, a sweetie will solve the issue. It's a little bit similar to take medicine, right? For if you have an issue, take a Band-Aid. It's always the Band-Aid, right? Quickly cover it up, like under it, right? And let's move on, right?
Yeah, you make such good points, and things that I didn't even associate with our topic today. I love this. You're so right. The dentist. I remember that. Oh, here's a piece of candy after they tortured you with cleaning the teeth.
Right.
Oh my goodness. That's so very true. Now, Andrea, are there different types of emotional eating, or is it all just one umbrella?
Oh, great question. Oh, there is a big, big, big umbrella. So there is emotional eating and stress eating that can be an occasional occurrence, a light emotional eater, let's say. that from time to time feels a bit tired or sad or stressed, and then, goes to food. But then, of course, there is a little bit more eating disorders, which could be anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder, and others. And I don't want to go too much into it. And that is more a disorder. So emotional eating can fall under that umbrella, but it can also be more the occasional or habit eater, but not being too bad. I would say it's a little bit with, we drink a glass of wine from time to time. It's fine. But if you start, drinking 3 glasses of wine every night, it might be a problem. Or you start, drinking in the morning every day or the whole day, or you have binge drinking events on the weekend. So you kind of get to a coma almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hear this through my intermittent fasting, which I'm coaching in my program. I'm like, okay, this is not that you're fasting during the week, that on Friday you can just go for it on Saturday, Sunday and say, whoa, now I'm not fasting anymore. I can eat whatever I want. So similar along those lines.
It is, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I am quite in favor, depending, but for some people, a cheat day works, but going overboard, absolutely. And then binging is also not something I would recommend. Now, for me, the difference is probably the planning, right? When you plan to eat more on a cheat day, for example, that's fine, plan it. We have, sometimes we have festivities coming up or so, holidays or whatever mm-hmm. there are. And you say, fine, I'm planning because I'm going to be with my family or so. I plan a little bit more eating. That's okay. Going on holidays or so, that's okay. However, there should be a balance, of course. I mean, it's probably not a good idea to plan, a binge, right? That's not what I'm saying here. But it's more about, I think the emotional eating becomes an emotional eating concern if you cannot control the eating anymore, right? When you basically start eating and you cannot stop eating, or you eat things that you've not planned, right? Instead of eating your lunch, you are going in the cookie jar or something like that, right? And that's, I think, more the concern here.
Yeah, you're addressing some of my questions that I have here for you as well. It's like one of them was, how can I control emotional eating? Or can I control emotional eating?
It's a great question as well. Your listeners have really good questions here, Heike. Now, can I control emotional eating? I would say yes and no. It depends, right? Often a good answer is it depends. Let me explain a little bit. I don't believe we can control anything, by the way. We can control what we do to an extent, and we can control habits. A lot of people think to eat healthy, live healthy, etc., they need what they call willpower, right?
Right.
Willpower is one of those currencies that can run out, right? You don't have enough willpower to overcome everything, every obstacle that are thrown your way or whatever it is, to stay and eat healthy or overcome emotional eating or whatever it is. By the way, it goes for many other things. I always say we all have a bag with coins of willpower, and we take them out and eventually the bag is empty. So what I'm saying here is we need to rely on something else than willpower. And that's still not control, right? Because willpower is together with control. Control is actually more the outcome here. To have control of something is more the outcome, not the habit, not the doing. So what I recommend there is, and it's actually part of my 5-step system, which I call the food freedom formula, which you mentioned earlier. We talked in the Food Freedom Festival around a lot, is my 4th step is actually relearn healthy habits, right? And I am a huge believer of habits, implementing habits like we are brushing our teeth. We spoke about the dentist earlier. Now, we all learned, or most of us at least, I guess, learned when we were young to brush our teeth. And we started only with one little tooth and then two and then three. It was playful. And today we are brushing our teeth in the morning and the evening. Some even floss their teeth, right? And we don't think about it anymore. And obviously that helps us to keep our teeth a little bit healthier than if we would not do that. And that's basically the way of how we overcome the emotional eating. I mean, there are obviously other steps there, but part of it with not needing control.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea, because control is also, like you said, we can't control anything because so many things are beyond our control, especially when it comes to eating. People tempting you with food, you're traveling to where you have no food, or people pressure you to eat, all kinds of different scenarios. And I don't know if I shared that with you before, Andrea, but I grew up until about the age of 12, maybe 13, and I was obese.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for my obesity and my uncontrollable eating was that I was always served adult sized plate of food. And in the good German way, you do not leave your plate until it's empty. And so from little on, I was taught that I need to appreciate the food on my plate, and I need to everything that is on my plate, because we can't waste food. It costs money. And so I ended up gaining weight and got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I had a big mind shift when I was 12, and that's a different story. But it was my circumstances that made me an obese child. Have you heard this? Have you seen this in your practice?
I have probably 90% of my, 80% of my clients have been obese during their childhood, or started putting on weight. And it depends on, of course, the circumstances. I do work a lot with women who have had trauma in their lives. They have been abused. I have a lot of clients with abuse, rape, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And some also have, from their families, heard things like, and there comes, I'm going to jump into the mindset, because you mentioned it earlier, you have to finish what's on your plate, right? That's a mindset. It's a very German one, right? Maybe it exists elsewhere, but I know that one too, right? And we have otherwise, similar mindsets or limiting mindsets that are put into our minds throughout, and we carry around with us. And that's one of the big issue, actually, and I'm working a lot with my clients, is we usually are told things in life when we were a child and we believe them, and it's in our subconscious. Things like, oh, in our family, everybody is fat.
Mm-hmm.
Or the parent or the aunt or whoever who says, oh, you are fatty, or you're going to be fat for the rest of your life, or things like that, whatever there are. I mean, there can be in all kind of combinations. Or then in the contrary, not in the contrary, but other things that I hear often is the parents come home after a long day of work, they're finished, they're working really hard, they need a break, and they put the child in front of TV with a bag of chips or candy or whatever it is, right? And kind of the child thinks, oh, my parents don't spend time with me, they don't love me, I'm not a lovable person, but those chips, candies, or whatever love me, right? Because they are
Mm-hmm.
here when I need them. And that's, of course, why they will go back over and over to the same food or a similar type of food, because that's what is giving them the love they're maybe craving today in their life, right? When they're emotionally down, feeling lonely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very true. Very true. And that's, I ended up being that overweight, fat child that nobody wanted to play with. And I ended up being lonely for a long, long time. And so when clients come to me in regard to weight loss, and they tell me, just like they tell you those stories, I was like, I know, I can relate, because I've been there. I know how that feels. And yeah, So before we get into your 5 steps to create freedom from emotional eating in a holistic way, I have a bunch more questions. Are you ready?
Okay, let's get it on.
Okay, I'm sitting here, I'm just like on fire here. Okay, here one of the things was somebody said, is emotional eating or not being able to stop eating once you start just a bad habit?
In a way, yes. I don't like to use the word bad, though. It's an unhealthy or an unhelpful habit. So I would first of all say that. So reframing is first of all that. And yes, it is probably a habit that you have taken up somewhere, probably from your childhood, right? Or in the past. It served at one stage, it might have served a purpose, right? Maybe you were in hospital and you really needed a pick me up and you started eating that way, or like we explored earlier, our parents put us on the side or whatever it is, right? And that might have served at the time, but today this habit is not anymore serving you. So yes, it becomes a bad or unhelpful habit in that, right? Because today, if you continue doing that, you will put on weight, most probably. You will eventually become sick, chronic ill, or whatever it is, right? You will probably feel less confident about yourself and you might retract more, not go out, and you get into this vicious cycle, right? And so on and so on. I mean, I can go on. So yes, it is a sort of negative habit, but the good news is, as much as you have picked up that habit, you can replace it with another habit, right? A more helpful habit. And I want just quickly, I hope we have the time, but I find that really interesting. I want quickly just to put something in, and I get often this aha moment with my clients, and I found it out recently, funny enough. I mean, I've been talking about it, but I never realized so much. I'm very big on habits, and a really great book, by the way, is called Tiny Habits. So maybe you can pick it up. I love it. I work a lot with that with my clients, is really starting tiny habits, small habits, instead of big, complicated new habits, because you're probably going to fail. And that's one of the reasons why many people fail, right? With dieting, with picking up new exercise or whatever it is. Now, the thing is and the important part of those tiny habits is that you have an existing trigger and then you do the new habit. So an existing trigger could be that you've had an old habit, a negative habit, and then you can replace it with a healthier, and then you celebrate, right? And that's the way the tiny habits work in a nutshell. I make it a bit quick here, but what is interesting there is the celebration will be taken by your brain into your dopamine, or will increase your dopamine level in your brain. Now, when you do that and you do it over and over, eventually your brain will know this new habit, let's say drinking a glass of water instead of snacking, is increasing the dopamine level. So it will crave the new healthy habit, which is drinking the water instead of snacking, right? Now, if you take that and you reverse it into the unhealthy habit, it all makes sense, because we are so much used to get this dopamine kick when you eat unhealthy. Right.
Very true.
And that's
Very
why
true.
we are craving over and over this unhealthy habit.
Who is this book by?
Now you put me really on the spot. I think I'll have to share that with you. I have it on my Kindle, but it's downstairs. I don't know if
That's okay. So what we're going to do to the listeners, I'm going to find out who the book is by, because I have a friend who wrote a book with that title, and I'm wondering if this is the book.
Oh, okay. Let's see if I have it here by any chance. I can quickly try and check it. Oh, you see, I should get that before. Tiny habits. Do I see that here? No, I don't find it now.
Don't worry, Andrea. What we're going to do, guys, is Andrea's going to give me the link to the book. So we'll put that in the show notes, including with all the links or all the topics we're talking about today. And so you can reach out to Andrea, but we'll also put the link for the book in the show notes so you can explore it for yourself and see if it's also helpful with the great idea that Andrea has just shared. I was like, replace an unhealthy habit with a healthier habit and keep practicing that habit, and then celebrate that success.
and I have the name now, quickly Googled it, BJ Fogg, Fogg, but we'll share that. I know it was a complicated name. That's why I couldn't remember it.
Yeah, because I have a friend who wrote a similar book with a similar title. So I was like, maybe it's her book. And she was a guest already on the show twice. But we'll put that book in the link in the show notes for you guys, so you have it and can explore it if you choose to. So this was a great example, Andrea. Now, the other one was, why can't I stop eating cravings once I start? It's similar to what we just said, basically. It's
yes,
the
I know.
dopamine kick, right?
Absolutely. So you have several things. Now, going back to my 5 steps of my food freedom formula, it's usually always a combination. It's never just one thing, right? So yes, we have the emotional side of it, what we explored, our upbringing, our subconscious. We have our mind, like we mentioned, the dopamine, right?
Yeah.
We have our gut as well. Now, the gut, now we go all into the nutrition side, the gut is having a direct talk with your brain, right? And basically it's called the gut-brain axis, and it's bi-directional. And with it also in the gut, you have actually your serotonin that's produced to 90% in your gut as well. So whatever we eat has an effect on our emotions and on the emotional eating. Now, when we eat unhealthy things, such as a lot of carbohydrates, sugar, processed foods or so, this will have an effect on our gut, right? And hence on our emotions and emotional eating, on our hormones, neurotransmitters, and so on and so on. So it's very important, first of all, to make sure that you have a healthy gut, right? With the right food. So that's one thing. The other thing is that you might have an imbalance of the foods, of the macros you eat. Especially, I mentioned already the unhealthy part, but also if you have too many carbs and not enough protein and healthy fats, then you have the imbalance. Your blood sugar is not staying stable, and that often leads to the high in blood sugar. You crash down, you want to pick me up. So you eat more sugar, carbs, whatever it is, you go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. And that's basically where it comes from.
Yeah. So since we're talking about your food freedom formula, let's go through the 5 steps so we sum them all together, because I know I have all these questions and we're picking and choosing here from your formula. Let's dive, even if we repeat them, that's a great strategy too, is what are the 5 steps?
Okay, great to talk about that.
Yes.
Absolutely. So the food freedom formula is basically, there are 5 R steps that help me. So the first one is basically is to find out really the root cause, right? Really find out what is the root cause of your issues. And we talked already a little bit about, what could be the issues of your emotional eating, of your weight issues, you're struggling, or maybe your health issues also. So I'm huge, and comes from a functional medicine perspective, which I'm trained in a little bit, is really finding out the root causes and how that all fits together, right? We mentioned the digestive system is if you have an imbalance. If, for example, just to give you an idea, if you don't have enough stomach acid, and as we age, the stomach acid decreases. It's natural. Plus, if we eat unhealthy, and plus other potential issues, your stomach acid might be too low. And that means it cannot break down the food into small little particles that can then be absorbed by, further down the road, your small intestines, and even partially on the stomach. Now, if that happens, the body is not getting enough nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and so on, and basically is sending up a signal to the brain, bring on more food, right? The gut thinks of nutrients, the brain thinks of food, and we eat more because we think we need more nutrients. So that's, for example, one thing that very easily, just by adjusting or finding out that the stomach acid is not enough, that might be an issue, that you might be eating too much or have some other health concerns. Huge thing. So find out the root cause. Really, really important. Then the next step is reset your body's healing abilities. By resetting, I mean, sometimes the body is actually stuck, and you can imagine it like a pipe in your house. If that pipe is stuck, you can do what you want, nothing happens, right? We all had that, I guess, in our lives. I hope not everybody, but certainly I had it. And you can do whatever you want. You need to unblock that pipe, right? And you can imagine that pipe being what I mentioned, just your liver mostly, not only your liver, some other organs, but the liver plays a huge role in getting rid of toxins and obviously helping your digestive system work through things, and is also very linked to your hormones, by the way. So if you have any liver issues, or your liver has a toxic toxin overload, often that could affect your hormones, by the way. So you want definitely to make sure everything flows. So usually there I would recommend a detox. And it's the way I work. Doing a detox is a very healthy way of nourishing while transforming fat-soluble toxins into water-solubles that can be safely transported. Very important. The third step is then, once your body is actually able to heal, is to repair the root cause, right? Before we found it out, now we need to repair it. So now we can actually address it, the stomach acid, balance your hormones, whatever it is, right? Work on those different areas. And only when your body is in health state, in healing, the weight will drop. The emotional eating will improve. Your heart condition maybe might improve, and so on and so on. So we want to get that. And then, of course, we mentioned about, we talked already a little bit about it, is then relearn healthy habits, right? Mm-hmm. So then we really want to learn those habits that keep us above in the different areas: eating, sleep, stress, exercise, of course, and so on. So we want really to have the habits that we can really come in, and accountability is very important in there. And that's why, people like you and I are working with our clients, right, to get them there, because habits are not happening overnight, right? It just takes time, accountability, and so on and so on. And then the last step is rewire your mindset. Now, that is, of course, something we talked about, but I'm also most passionate about, probably, is really to find out, okay, what is preventing you from getting there? Because often I have a lot of my clients, and I'm sure you have that too, Heike, they know what they should be doing, right? Yeah. They're clever, they know more or less what they should be eating, perhaps not 100%, but they more or less have an idea, and they're still not doing it because there's self-sabotage, there's the limiting mindset, or whatever it is, the trauma that holds them back, whatever. And that's really important. And these 5 steps together is really what makes it. And where I have seen that, clients of mine lost 20 to 50 pounds in 6 months, overcame emotional eating, have a better relationship with their body and with food. So many people are so overwhelmed about, thinking all the time around food. What should I eat? What shouldn't I eat? They're stressed. It makes worse, right? Everything. Oh, God. So that's really how you overcome it.
Yeah, when you think about these 5 steps, and they make, in my mind, total sense, because nothing works without connecting the mind and body. And just going for another yo-yo diet or another like food, whatever, something to lose weight or feel better always backfires, because they're also in short duration, and they're so toxic to the system that the results show maybe just temporary. And I have a client who has been telling me that or a former client, I should say, that she's been on the keto diet for 6 weeks, and she says, and I haven't lost any weight. Which brings me actually to the next question, which is clients that are trying to lose weight year after year and nothing works. What do you tell them?
If you've been trying the same thing, you need to change, right?
It's like, do something different, right?
Exactly. And that's it. The thing is, diets just, I'm sorry, but they just don't work, right? They might give a short-time relief. They might address a certain thing. But again, going back, you need to combine this. You need to look at the root cause. If you continue eating, I see so many clients like keto, like you. I have plenty of people who come with keto. Seems to be a thing at the moment, right? And it's not working. And remember, it's might work. Not that I would recommend necessarily keto, because I don't believe it's healthy in the long term. There are a few exceptions like epilepsy and so on, where I would maybe consider it. But otherwise, if if that doesn't work in the as a long-term plan, it's not good, right? Because in the end, you want something that's more like a lifestyle that you can keep, not something that stresses you, that's restrictive, that you actually in general hate. And I don't know anybody really who says, oh yeah, I'm so excited, I have this diet. I mean, there might be four, but usually after a few days, I don't know. And it's really about, changing it.
Yeah. And any listener who is doing keto, guys, if this works for you and that's your jam, keep going. We're not trying to convince you otherwise. What we're teaching you here is the root causes, as Andrea says, is of how we can live better, healthier in a holistic way, not supplements and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see that as well. I have recently taken on one client. Her list of supplements was, the screen is not long enough, right? I think she was literally taking over 30 supplements plus some medicine as well a day, which became toxic because she was on some, and I had to show her that, she was taking in 5 or 6 supplements. There was vitamin A, for example. Some of these things can become toxic when you take too much. And then a lot of people think then, yeah, if I take all the supplements or I do this diet or whatever, I'm doing good. And then behind they do everything else not good, right? And wonder. It's really about a full approach. And you're absolutely right. I don't say keto is a bad thing. It could be dangerous because keto can be deficient. So again, it's not necessarily a very good long-term approach because there can be deficiencies happening. So I would recommend really working with a professional together. But it's more about the personalized approach, right? Agreed. If you read like keto works for your friend or on Google or whatever, it doesn't mean it works for you.
Yeah. And you got to always make a choice that's the healthiest and most educated decision. Like if somebody works with you and they get their 5 steps and you work with them individually, or do you work with them in groups?
Or both? I work both. I have 3 main ways of working, a few other programs. So I have a very exclusive one-on-one VIP program over 6 months. I don't work short term. I only work long time because those 5 steps take time, right? And I really pride myself to help my clients overcome the issues like for the rest of their lives. And I have plenty of clients who contact me years after and still are on track or have lost more weight or whatever it is. So that's really important. And so I have the one-on-one coaching program, and then I have a really great group coaching program it's a little bit one-on-one and group, but it's a great group dynamic as well. And then I have another program which is more around habits, and it's more almost like self-study, but still with some one-on-one. I just love personalizing my approach. So at the moment, I'm, except one small exception, I don't just kind of, throw out a program for anybody. I believe it's good to have the personalization in this market.
Yeah, I agree. Now, if I were to come and the takeaway for somebody saying, well, what would she do with me when I come to her? Or perhaps what would be one thing Andrea would tell me that I should do, that I could do right now, even while listening to the show, perhaps, or even months later, it doesn't matter when you listen to this. What would Andrea say, what should I do right now to change that pattern?
The easiest step to start is, and that's sometimes or mostly I start with my clients, is make the smallest little change that you can make and make sure you do it consistently. So if you want to implement exercise in your life and you've not exercised extensively before, just opt for one squat or push up or whatever instead of going for half an hour or an hour of exercise. If you're drinking too little water, and by the way, water is big as well. Often we are dehydrated and we think we're craving food, right? So when that is, just make sure you have your glass of water always there, and you start with adding 1 glass of water, whatever, when your alarm rings or when you go to the bathroom or whatever it is, right? Again, I go back to the tiny habits here. The same with food, start only maybe improving your breakfast or so, and do that for a week at least, or even more, right? Or even ideally a month or so. And then, you can add another habit and another habit, but make it small, set yourself small goals, and then count your wins immediately. Yoo-hoo, the celebration. But then also a very good idea is to plan and look back, review, improve, right? And then implement.
Yeah, that's why they need somebody like you to have them coach you through, because we don't know. And when we're recording this interview, we're right in the smack middle in the holidays. And we didn't want to make this episode all about the holidays, because what we're teaching you here today applies to everything and every day in your life, your lifelong habits. But we are right now bombarded with already the new you in January, the next diet, the next gadget, whatever it is. And I want to ask Andrea before we wrap this up, is why do we justify that January will be the new you and we keep repeating that cycle? What do you think?
Over and over and over. It's a bit like with the dieting, right? What didn't
Yep.
work. And if you've not been able to come up, and stay on par with your New Year's resolutions in the past 40 years or 20 years, or depending how old you are, right? Chances are it's not going to happen now. So maybe change something, right? So instead of, just having that resolution, I try doing this or whatever, get a coach, for example, right? I have my coach. For me, coaching is the best thing in the world, right? Or don't do it in New Year's, do it maybe at another time or so. I mean, just change something, whatever it is. But the New Year's resolutions, I think they've done studies. I don't know exactly the percentage, but somewhere like 92 to 97% don't work. Sorry to tell you.
It's so frustrating. And, every time when we come to this time of the year, I want to bang my head against the wall. I'm like, people, listen to us. Why don't you want to listen? But we keep plugging along, and we're also plugging along because you have some freebies for my audience. Would you like to talk about that, Andrea?
I am excited about that. Absolutely. I love handing out some things that you can actually implement immediately and get help as well, right? Of course, I would love everybody to join my programs, but in case you're interested, please let us know. Of course, I'm here for you and can guide you. But so I have two little freebies, or good freebies actually. So one is we spoke a lot about emotional eating, and I have an ebook that I call Beat Your Emotional Cravings, More Food, Less Cravings ebook, right? And in there, you will learn easy tricks, meditation routines, and some strategies to beat cravings for good. Some things we talked about today, some things you can remember, but also some other things that we haven't yet talked. So you definitely want to check that out, and you will have the link in the show notes. And then the other thing I want really to extend here, and I hope I'm not promising too much, so we have probably to cap it a little bit. I know you have a big audience, so I will give some space. I will put some space aside in my calendar for you guys and invite you to sign up for a free food freedom consultation. Now I'm struggling with my own words. Where basically, if you have any questions and if you want to find out how now you can apply that into your own life, maybe you've been struggling with dieting or with, losing weight, or you lost weight and you put it on, or you have emotional eating issues, or maybe some health issues, and you actually want to hear based on what are your issues, not everybody else's, I will get with you on a call. And like this, we can really explore your goals, what you're struggling, why you've been struggling so much. And we can put together an action plan that's unique only for you, right? Not for anybody else, but only for you, that will help you to achieve those goals.
And did they go to your website to get to work with you?
The link will also be shared in the show notes. I will send that to you so you can share that in here in the show notes. So there will be obviously a limit. If I'm full. But so you want definitely, when this airs, you want to sign up immediately. It's called the Free Food Freedom Consultation, and the link is in here. And I will probably open up spaces for about 10 people.
Great. That's very generous offer, Andrea. I appreciate that. And I know my listeners appreciate it too.
I'm sure they do. And I look forward meeting them personally, because now I have the pleasure of obviously talking with you, and I really love it. I so enjoy it. But I would love to get to know your listeners a little bit more and help them especially.
There you go. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time being here and sharing all your wisdom and great tips and answering a lot of the questions that I was asked by my clients and my women in the empty nester women over 50 in my Facebook group. And that was already a huge help. But what we want, guys, is for anybody listening at any time, is we want you to reach out to us on social media. You know, you can find me at Heike Yates, and on Facebook, I'm at Heike Yates Pursue Your Spark. Instagram, it's just Heike Yates. And Andrea is on Instagram at Wellness Methods. And her links, like I said before, will be in the show notes. But we want you to talk to us. We don't want you just to listen to this recording and say, oh, cool, now I'll listen to it. Okay, maybe I get the freebie and maybe I'm going to sign up for Andrea. Go ahead and do it. But we want to keep the conversation going. We want to hear how this episode impacted you, what you learned. Maybe you have more questions right off the bat that I didn't think about to ask Andrea, or anything that is pertinent to what we talked about today. And also share this episode wide and far so anybody can learn more about that. Emotional eating is not something you should feel guilty about or feel bad about, but that there's ways to deal with this. Don't you agree, Andrea?
You put it so nicely, and you deserve really to overcome your struggles with it, right? It is possible. It is really, you just need to find the right thing. And yes, I would love to talk to you guys. Definitely. Let's continue the conversation.
And with that, my friends, that's it today at the Pursue Your Spark podcast. And I'll see you next time. Ciao.